we'll be looking at this idea of critical data studies and what does it involve. Because as digital researchers, all of our studies involve a particular type of data, but what this critical perspective or lens offers is actually thinking about the ways in which data is generated, curated, and how it influences different sorts of power relations across all of society and in different ways. So it's helpful in understanding and unpacking that, once again, that data is not static, it's not inert, and it also relates to the earlier concept we highlighted around data journeys, the way in which data moves across different sites of practice. It's generated for particular purposes, but then again, it's reused and repurposed in different ways by different stakeholders and organisations. So an example of this, and a little snapshot that is highlighted here, is this concept of the data-fied child and the implications that has for particularly youth and childhood research. So an article, journal article by Deborah Lupton and Ben Williamson called The Datafied Child explores what they term the data valence of children and implications for their rights. So as they highlight here, they say that children are becoming the objects of a multitude of monitoring devices that generate detailed data about them. And researchers and critical data researchers and privacy advocates are only just beginning to direct attention to these practices. So this concept of data valence, which they propose, is a play on this idea of the increasing amounts of data which are out there, like the consumer monitoring and consumer data highlighted earlier, and actually how that is a form of not just monitoring, but that data collection is a form of surveillance as well. And the example on the screen is a book, as you can see, entitled The Internet of Toys. And the examples in that particular book really highlight the ways, the benefits and joy that young people do get out of these digitally networked toys, but then also the questions and concerns about the ways in which young people's interactions and conversations and the way they play as well is being monitored and surveilled by organisations, and it's still quite unclear or opaque in terms of how that data is being collected, but also for what purposes it's being used and how it is stored, and what are the implications of that in terms of how that data might be used in the years to come, when so much will be known about that particular child and how they've interacted with that particular toy. And this also relates to a particular concern that the World Health Organization has in partnership with UNICEF, which is an organisation which promotes young people's rights, and the Lancet Commission, which is focused on advancing health and well-being. And in this particular article, where they talk about where the question they pose is a future for the world's children, is a concern that they have in terms of one of the main concerns they have is the rapid spread of digital and mobile communications and the ways in which young people are being exposed to commercial marketing pressures. And we really need to be thinking much more about the ways in which these digital technologies are targeting young people for different purposes, and how we can better design and develop these technologies so that young people can benefit and communities can benefit from these technologies and the types of data that is being produced. And finally, I'd like to highlight a particular journal article which I co-authored with Philippa Collin and Amanda Third. And what we did is we utilised that data journeys concept highlighted earlier in relation to children and young people. So what we were really interested in is understanding and identifying how children's data is generated in different ways across different organisations. And the three organisations we look at is a corporate organisation, Facebook, the Australian Bureau of Statistics, a government organisation, and a university organisation. So all of them have particular interests in producing and collecting data about children and young people, but the way that data is utilised or deployed and repurposed, it changes depending on the motivations of the organisation. So we really found that data journeys concept really helpful for this particular article, and we're also looking into how we can deploy this concept for future studies as well.